Welcome to LeaderIQ, where we share the stories of leaders in brand and retail, so you can learn what led them to find success in their careers, while giving you an intimate look at how they made foundational decisions along the way. This show is hosted by Guru Hariharan, who's the founder and CEO of LeaderIQ. Guru spent most of his career working as a leader at companies like Amazon and eBay, before becoming an entrepreneur himself. This podcast is brought to you by LeaderIQ, a company which Guru started in 2019 that has become the e-commerce operating system for brands like Logitech, Johnson & Johnson, Kellogg's, Mars, Duracell, and many more. If you're interested, check out commerceiq.ai to learn more. With that, let's get to the show. Today's guest is Lisa Curtis, founder and CEO of Kuli Kuli. Lisa's story is incredible. For a time in the Peace Corps, she discovered the superfood known as moringa, which is the origin story to what is now a multi-million-dollar brand and company, Kuli Kuli, that's sold in over 11,000 stores across North America. Lisa was named to the Forbes 30 Under 30 list in 2018 and has an amazing story that I'm excited for you to hear for yourself. Without further ado, here is Lisa Curtis and your host, Guru Hariharan.
Lisa, it's just a pleasure to have you on this podcast. We've been friends for a while, and I've been frankly looking forward to having you on this show and very, very excited about our conversation. I've been watching your career, at least in the last year or so that I've known you from outside in, and I'm really excited to unravel the second and third level inside that and talk to you about them. So thanks for making time for the show.
Yeah, thanks.
So why don't we jump right in? Would love to maybe even start with giving us a quick overview about Kuli Kuli and how did the idea come across? Maybe we'll start over there.
Yeah, so Kuli Kuli is the leading brand pioneering a superfood called moringa, which has been eaten all over the world for a long time, but has not made it to the US until now. So we sell moringa. Basically, it's these powdered leaves. We sell it in the form of powders that a lot of people add to their smoothies, and we also sell it in snacks. And we're in about 11,000 stores across the US. So everywhere from Whole Foods and Sprouts to places like Costco, Walmart, and CVS.
Very cool. I'm sure we'll get to unravel that more as we go along. But maybe I want to start with your early life, Lisa. What can you talk to us about your upbringing? What was it growing up? What are the values that you picked up as you grew up?
Yeah, going all the way back. So I am a Bay Area native. I grew up in Alameda, right outside of San Francisco, and California child in a lot of ways, I would say. When I was like 12, I won a composting contest for writing an essay about composting. So that was my first, environmental award, so to speak. And right around that same time frame, I convinced not just myself, but my two younger sisters to go vegetarian. So basically forced my whole family into vegetarianism, which is pretty fun. And yeah, I have always been, really interested in making the world a better place. My mom was a church deacon for a long time and did a lot in terms of, we would help her make food for the homeless shelter. We would just do a lot of kind of community give back activities, wrap presents for folks whose parents were incarcerated. A lot of kind of like social activism and just playing community building at an early age that has definitely stuck with me.
How did that? How was that taken in sort of the vegetarianism that you tried to force your family through?
It was. So it was. My mom was very much of the opinion. She's like, "Really? Do you really want to do this? Are you sure?" And then she decided to talk us into still eating fish. So we sort of agreed that she would try to buy us, sustainably caught fish, and the other three of us would eat that. So we're technically, to this day, all three of us are still pescatarians. And that was the compromise we came up with.
Got it. Got it. So you eat eggs and you eat fish. Okay. So then
Yes.
you drink milk. So that makes you over lacto pescatarian then.
Yeah, if you want to decide it, often I just say vegetarian because I'm just mostly prefer to eat vegetables, but I do eat a lot of other things as well.
That's great. Yeah, great. And what about some of the early experiences that you had with social giving or social involvement that you talked about? Can you just expand on that more? Who encouraged you to do that? Was it all in the family? And what were your observations and learnings that stuck with you since then?
Yeah. Definitely my mom is just super active in the community and always trying to do good. And I think, one of the things she said to us when we were all pretty young is she said, you've been born into a family with relative privilege. You don't have to worry about shelter, food, you've got more than most of the world. And now it's your job to give back. And kind of drilled that into us in a pretty early age and made sure that, we went and visited families who were in deep West Oakland, or we were kind of, helping to give presents and visited families who were unhoused and just really tried to help us understand that we were very privileged and that's not how everyone lived. And so I think that made a big impression early on. And just, one quick story that really stuck with me. And I think this is when I went from being like an observer into a change maker, was when I was in high school. I went to this high school that was fairly new and they didn't have any recycling set up. And so I was just like, what? No recycling, you have to recycle. It's like, one of my values is like environmentalism. And I remember complaining to my mom and just being like, what's wrong with this school? Why don't they recycle? And she's like, well, if you don't like it, change it, figure out how you change it. And so I ended up partnering with Habitat for Humanity. I have a Cans for Habitat program where I put up recycling bins all throughout our school. And then we collected those recyclables, took them to the recycling center and got that money and donated it to build houses through Habitat for Humanity, which was really cool. And it was like the first time that I had led an initiative to change something that I was unhappy about. And I think that ethos of if you see something that's wrong, you see something that's broken, you see something that you don't like, change it, has really stuck with me. And I totally credit my mom for that.
That's a great story. I was actually very curious on where the entrepreneurial bug came from, but that explains a lot. Like if you see a problem, fix it. Certainly the genesis of every founding story. But yeah, maybe was there an entrepreneurship in the family?
Yes and no. My parents are both dentists, which everyone always looks at my teeth, so I'll smile really wide when I say that. But they ran a small dental practice themselves, so certainly they had to think about that, but not one that they were trying to scale really beyond kind of their own capacity.
Got it. But a lot of that looks like the bug around of see a problem, fix the problem kind of motto came from there, which looks like stuck with you. Fast forwarding into your still in your relatively early days, you also spent time at the White House as an intern. What's the story of how you got that offer, and did you really seek that internship and get it? Which tell us about how you landed there.
Yeah. So I just am kind of in love with President Obama. Who's not? He's amazing. And I've always been really interested in politics. And when I saw that there was an opportunity to intern in the White House, I applied kind of point blank. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't really have any connections. I think my parents maybe donated $100 to the campaign. They weren't major givers or anything. And the really cool thing about that White House was that they, I think for the first time in history, did a blind application process. Because often the interns were, the daughter, the children or grandchildren of large donors got to be interns, but it was not the case for the Obama administration. And so it was the most diverse class by far in history. You had people of, all different races, ethnicities, socioeconomic backgrounds. And it's actually where I met my husband as well. So it was a pretty transformative summer in a lot of ways.
That sounds great. Okay, I didn't know that. That's very interesting. Very transformative indeed. And how was that experience going from being a West Coast girl to now, did you have to move to DC and sort of live in a different, politically charged air versus coming from a very, easygoing entrepreneurial air that we breathe in the area?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I biked in a suit and heels to the White House every day. Social Security would or not Social Security, sorry, the White House security would always laugh at me. They thought it was hilarious that I was coming into the White House via bike, but that's how I wanted to get there. And it's definitely a different atmosphere, but I think it was an exciting time, especially then. Just everything was changing and there was a lot of hope for the future. So it was politics is still something that I think maybe someday I'll return to, but it definitely sparked a bug of I want to make change,
make a difference
in my own way.
Any key any learnings that you picked up in and around being President Obama and just being in the White House and stuff? Anything that stuck with you since then?
I think one of the pieces of advice, and this was from Patrick Gaspard, who he's a name that not a ton of people know, but he was one of the key political operatives behind the Obama administration. And he took me out to lunch towards the end of my internship. And one of the things he said to me is the true marker of success is that you for the rest of your career will never, ever have to apply for a job, that you will be making such a splash that people will come to you and you'll sort of know enough people that, you'll just get whatever comes next. And that idea has certainly stuck with me.
That's good. And certainly you took it to heart, looks like.
Yeah. Well, I created my own job, which I didn't apply for. So there's that, right?
Totally. And Lisa, then you ended up at Peace Corps. What was the story and how did you end up over there?
So, so I have always been really interested in travel and experiencing other cultures. And while I was in college, I spent a lot of time learning about politics in different places and took a couple of classes on politics on the African continent, and just felt like Africa is, this place that people know so little of, that they have a lot of assumptions about. And I really wanted to go and see it for myself. So I, figured out what was the best way for me to get there, and ended up applying for the Peace Corps. I think the other part of that is I really wanted to know what the best way for me to kind of learn about international development. And the cool thing about the Peace Corps is you really do live at the level of the people that you're there to serve. And so I got the chance to live off $75 a day, live in a mud house in a small village, no electricity, no running water. And it kind of taught me a lot.
Where in Africa?
So I went to Niger in West Africa.
That's great. That sounds like a pretty impactful experience. It's very interesting how you've almost connected your dots, now knowing the story of your time at the White House, the Peace Corps, and sort of your upbringing. I can easily now start connecting to your founding of Kuli Kuli, but maybe we can jump into that real quick. How did that idea come across, and give us a little bit more about the mission that you're seeking to solve with Kuli Kuli?
Yeah. So, Kuli Kuli, really our mission is to use nutrient-rich plants like moringa as a tool to improve nutrition and health worldwide. So the way that this came about is in my Peace Corps village in Niger, I found that I was eating, as a vegetarian, mostly rice every day, and it was a diet that left me feeling really fatigued. So I asked some of the women in my village what I could eat that would make me feel better. And they literally pull these leaves off a tree and mix them into a popular West African snack. It's a peanut snack called Kuli Kuli, and said, eat this, it'll make you feel better. And I had never thought to eat tree leaves. I'd never heard of moringa, but I totally trusted these women. So I was like, okay, sure. Yeah, I'll eat it. And was like, wow, this is having a really profound impact on me. This is amazing. This is incredible stuff. What is this? And did a little research, and I was like, wow, moringa is one of the most nutritious plants in the world. It grows in hot, dry places like Niger. And then just kept kind of scratching my head because no one locally was really eating it. And there I was working at the health center, treating malnourished babies, being like, wait, this nutritious plant is growing, but it's not very popular. So I started asking people in my village, what can I do to help more people locally grow moringa and benefit from it? And they said what I think any farmer anywhere is going to say is, we're not going to grow a crop that we can't sell. So why don't you help us sell it? And if we can sell more of it, we'll grow more of it, and we'll sort of popularize it locally that way. So, at the age of 22, like not knowing what I was signing up for, I was like, sure, yeah, no problem. Like, I'll help you sell moringa in the US. And so I ended up, when I came back, starting Kuli Kuli out of that.
So, can you talk a bit more about moringa then? It sounds very interesting. Like, and Lisa, coming from India, I've also seen, especially in South India, they consume the moringa leaves, and maybe it's also in North, but definitely in the South, it's a pretty big part of our ingredients that we use. And there's a lot of nutritional benefits to it. I never got a chance to dig too deep. I just ate it because my mom wanted me to.
There you go.
Talk a little bit about the leaf and the ingredients and the health benefits.
Yeah, so exactly right. As you know, it's often called the drumstick tree in India. It's used a lot in Ayurvedic medicine. So really popular there. It's also popular in the Philippines. It's the national vegetable. In different parts of Africa, it's called the tree of life, or the miracle leaf. So it's popular and kind of known in different places in different ways. But the main thing about it is the leaves are incredibly nutritious. So they're packed with protein, calcium, vitamins, iron, all these great antioxidants and phytochemicals. And it really has this powerful effect on your body. It kind of gives your body like all the nutrients it needs to feel good. And so a lot of people find that they get sort of like a lift, like not a caffeine lift, but like just like a bit of an energy boost from it. And so that's really, I would say, why a lot of our customers, love moringa and take it every day.
And what was it like going back when you discovered this and you came back to the US? Now it was first year of sort of coming in and forming this company, running it. I'm sure you would have faced a lot of challenges and issues starting a business. Of course, it's not the ideas. When the idea creation happens, that's the most interesting and sexiest part of the entire journey. Mm-hmm. Coming in and executing starts to become really hard. Did you find a level of acceptance? And talk to us a bit about the founding year of Kuli Kuli.
Yeah, so Kuli Kuli, I came back from Peace Corps and it was a little bit unexpected. There was a terrorist attack, so I ended up getting evacuated out of Niger early, so I didn't get to spend the full 2 years. I ended up living in India, living in New Delhi for a little while and working in this like social impact sector there and being like, wow, this is cool. And then finally making it back to the US and still thinking like, oh, moringa is amazing.
No, you just went through.
Just skimming over the terrorist attack. Yeah. So to maybe go a little bit deeper. So 7 months into my Peace Corps service, there was an attack where it was the like West African branch of Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaim, came into the capital city, literally across the street from the Peace Corps headquarters, and captured 2 Frenchmen and took them into the desert and unfortunately killed them. And it, the U.S. government, which the Peace Corps is a part of, does not play games. We were evacuated within 48 hours. So it was heartbreaking to have spent so much time like getting to know all these people in my village. And 7 months doesn't sound like a huge amount of time, but when you're in a small community and it's not like you have TV, you're just like hanging out with people all day. Like, people called me their daughter. I had dinner with them every night. Like, it was so sad. And so, one of the things I kind of made a promise is like, well, let me figure out like how I can help, how I can do something from the US. And so that's really kind of where originally this idea to help more people sell moringa in Niger kind of evolved. And then like, oh, well, now I'm in the US, maybe I can help them sell moringa here. And the kind of like interlude in India was basically they evacuated us to Morocco, and a family friend was getting married in New Delhi. And I was like, well, I'm sort of close, close as I'll ever be. So I ended up going to Delhi for a wedding, and I stayed for 6 months and worked at an impact investment firm in Delhi. And then finally came home. And came home with 0 money. Peace Corps paid me $75 a month. I had made a tiny bit of money in India, not much. And so really, needed to find a day job. So I ended up working at a solar finance company called Mosaic, was my day job. And then Kuli Kuli was my like nights, weekends, side hustle, trying to figure out like, can I even do this? How do I get this idea off the ground and turn it into a company and a product?
Got it. Wow, that's that was very intense. Must have been a very intense experience going through that, and looks like that also gave you a lot of strength to actually come in and be motivated about this idea and launching it.
Definitely. I felt like I had this unfinished business where I had, been supposed to be there for 2.5 years. I had all these projects and, people I wanted to support. And so I just had to find a different way to do it.
So now you have an idea, you have a mission, you have something to prove to yourself, and you've connected the dots, you're motivated. You now talk to us about what was the first product? How did you go about coming up with the first product, and how did you land the first customer? That business process, how did you go about? Would love to understand that.
Depends on how you define customer. So the first product was very, very low key, kind of low budget, so to speak. So the first product was, we decided to do, so at the time I recruited 2 of my friends, one from high school, one from childhood, who had like a little bit of experience, one in food, one in startups. We recruited another friend who had experience in graphic design. All this, we all had day jobs. This was like a side project. But I somehow got them to buy in on, let's see if we can do it. And so originally we're like, well, people don't know what moringa is, but this is really nutritious. What do people look for in nutrition? They look at nutrition bars. Let's make a bar. So that was actually the original product we launched, was an energy bar made with moringa, with the idea you're getting like half a cup of leafy greens from this moringa, kind of this, powerful plant. And we wanted to see if people would actually buy it. So we did farmers markets, and we were pretty, we kind of used, one of my friends at the time was working for a CPG consulting firm that worked with like Clorox and General Mills and all the big companies. And so she kind of took that methodology and we applied it at like a very budget farmers market level where, everyone who came by, we did this little shotgun survey of like, what's their demographics, did they try the product, what they like, what do they not like? And then we were able to get a sense of our conversion rate of how many people were purchasing from sample to sale. And we're getting a really good rate. It was like 16 to 20%, which is like very high for CPG, and getting a lot of good comments. And so decided, okay, we've got something that works, and we've got, all these stats on who our customer is. let's see if, if we can scale it up. So we took the idea to Whole Foods, just Whole Foods Northern California, and they loved it. And the buyer, it's like the craziest meeting I ever had. Like, we were so nervous. We had prepped so hard. We had made all these samples by hand. And we literally walked into this room, and this Whole Foods Northern California buyer was like, oh, moringa. I love moringa. We don't have any moringa products. Let's do it. And we were just like, what? Really? So it remains, I think, the easiest sale, my first and only easy sale. But that's what launched us.
That's a great story. Going back to that, that's very interesting. You talked about how you took a consumer first approach, consumer testing and all that, and love that farmers market testing idea. I don't know if it's normal, and this is the first time I've heard it, but I'm not in this business. It was very interesting for me to hear how you sort of went to the shoppers and looked at it first. You talked about a 16 to 18% conversion rate. How did you ensure that there was no bias in that, like, hey, it's not because you're standing in front of them and you wanted, and was there a bias saying, hey, we have to say we like this product?
Well, so we were big on like people voting with their money. So they, it was really about like, did they buy the product? And one of the things I found, which was kind of fascinating for me, is that I, bleeding heart, Peace Corps volunteer, thought that people would be really interested because of the mission of like, oh, let me buy this bar because it helps women in West Africa. And we found that those people would stay at our booth and like talk to us for a really long time, but they wouldn't buy. Because we had to sort of immediately put them in this like charitable frame of mind. And that's not what makes people want a product. Nobody walks into the grocery store and says, what's the most impactful thing in this grocery store I can buy? They walk into the grocery store and they say, what's tasty? What meets my needs? What's gonna feed my family? And so we found that people really were purchasing if it met their needs and not just like the pity purchases. Maybe we got like a few of those, but you could kind of tell when it was like, oh, I don't like it. But sure, I'll buy one.
Got it. So you were able to sort of bake that and maybe discount your conversion rate, and still it was pretty high and that gave you the motivation to launch it. That's a great story. And that almost, by the way, sounds like it's got a dual impact. It's got an impact on the P&L, but it also has an impact on the social element of it. This almost sounds like a double bottom line type of company.
Yeah. So that is that's absolutely who we are. So we're a B Corp benefit corporation. Very much, I tell people we're kind of in between a for-profit and a nonprofit, in the sense that we really have this mission baked into our legal structure to use nutrient-rich plants like moringa to improve nutrition in livelihoods around the world. And so success for us looks like scaling and, growing really big and growing profitable, but it also looks like how many small farmers are we supporting? In what ways are we, creating a better planet with regenerative agriculture, with compostable and recycled packaging, with ingredients sourced from small farmers that support farming communities. And so that really is all a strong part of our mission.
It's so fantastic. It's often hard to just even hit one bottom line, which is the P&L. And now you're talking about hitting two bottom lines on the social element as well. But I got to say, I'm very jealous. I think having a double bottom line where you actually the more money you make, the more P&L, top line, and profits that you generate, you're actually creating more social good in the world, which is incredible. I wish there were a lot more such companies in the world. So tell us a little bit more about how a double bottom line company works, and how do you measure your success?
Yeah, well, hopefully more and more are coming up in the world. I think there is a big movement of more businesses, using the market as a force for good. For us, we really try to think about, okay, what are our impact goals for the year, for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, and really try to structure our business around, both our revenue goals and our impact goals. And so, we know that we can't be all things to all people, but we want to really focus on, kind of three main things. We want to focus on our small farmer partnerships. So really, how are we supporting these partners? How are we helping them grow? How are we, even introducing them to other businesses that can source from them is something we do all the time. How are we supporting them with financing? How are we, being just kind of the best possible partner to them? The second thing is really kind of reducing our impact on the environment. So we just transformed about 80% of our products into post-consumer recycled plastic. So we're saving hundreds of thousands of water bottles every year, kind of the equivalent of by using this pre-recycled plastic on our pouches, which is pretty cool. And then the last thing is we're really big believers in gender equality. We think that, we need women and men to be given equal access to opportunities. And so that's something we work on within our supply chain. It's something we work on within our company. It's something we've, worked on kind of publicly, in the US with working moms dropping out of the workforce. And it's a big part of kind of who we are and what we stand for as well.
So it looks like you're watching metrics on both ends, which is not just the top line, bottom line growth, but also the impact that, or the goals that you take up with respect to from an environment perspective or from a social good standpoint, and you're tracking on hitting both those objectives in a given year.
Yes, exactly. And then we do a report every year to put those out as well.
That's great. So Lisa, how did you fund the early part of the business when you started this? I also noticed that Kellogg's is an investor. How did that come across? How did you give them the confidence? And talk to us about the first few checks that were written into your business.
Yeah. So we, for a long time, had a lot of trouble fundraising. I think there were a lot of investors who said, you don't have no experience in food, you have no real experience in business, period. You're young, you're a woman, you're sourcing a plant nobody's heard of, you're sourcing it from small farmers in Africa. How is that even going to work? So it was really hard to get folks to really buy in at the beginning. And so for a lot of it was really bootstrapping early on and just trying to get as much traction as we could without outside funding. So, I didn't take a salary for a year and kind of hobbled together various grants and like consulting jobs. And then we finally started to really see some traction. So, when Whole Foods picked up our Moringa bars in Northern California, literally I made it my job was to go and visit every Whole Foods store, show up, do a demo, talk to customers, talk to staff, really try to get these bars to fly off the shelf. And it started to work. We were starting to see some real traction with that. We started to get some really amazing press hits. People were talking about this story. They're like, this is so cool. This is awesome what you're doing. And so we, started to be able to show investors, hey, these are all the great press hits we've gotten. This is all the great in-store velocity. And we could show them the math. We're like, look, if we're in 50 stores and we're selling, 10 units per store per week, here's what we could do if we were in 500 stores. And so that finally worked. And I really credit, there's the slow money community. So they kind of invest in local food, as well as a lot of impact angel investors is giving us kind of our first capital. And then from there, I did every single pitch event I could ever think of. I was just always on stage, always pitching. And Kellogg's actually saw me pitch. And they came up to me and afterwards and said, really like what you're doing, really interested. Can you tell us more? And I think at the time, like the idea sounded so crazy, like the maker of Frosted Flakes is going to invest in this, kind of unknown African superfood. Like it just didn't seem like it was made to fit. But then I started learning about Kellogg's and I'm like, oh, wow, they were started by a vegetarian and like their whole product line is plant-based and like they're really focused on like, creating healthier snacks, and the WK Kellogg Foundation, which, is huge, does an amazing work improving nutrition around the world. So got a chance to get to know their team, and we became the first company that they invested in. So that was in 2016. They led our Series A, and then we've raised about 10.6 million since then.
That's incredible. Congratulations. What forum was that you mentioned where you pitched when Kellogg's took a note?
Yeah, so it was actually at Food Funded, which is, it's a really cool event that supports local entrepreneurs kind of in the sustainable food ecosystem. It's fun because they now have me back and I like MC all their events. So it's been a really cool community to be a part of.
That's great. That's great. Now we've been talking about a lot of the happy stories. If I would love to just maybe dig into a failure or two, maybe looking back, is there a moment when you thought, wow, this is it, I gotta probably shut shop and close down, or one big catastrophic issue that happens, failure that happens?
Oh my gosh, so many failures. I think I failed my way forward for like 8 years.
I love
that. So I think one early on is I really had this idea that we had to source all of our products from women's cooperatives in West Africa, and that was really what our brand stood for. And so we had, this one cooperative in Ghana we were sourcing all of our moringa from, had a great partnership there. And about 4 months before we were supposed to launch our moringa powder nationwide with Whole Foods, they send us these photos. And there's this huge wildfire in northern Ghana, and their entire moringa farm has burned to the ground. And that was one of those moments where I was like, I don't know how we're going to make it out of this. I don't know what we're going to do. And just, was kind of like at my wit's end. And actually, to bring my mom, this is maybe a little bit embarrassing, but at the time I was the only person full time and my mom was helping us out by doing all of our customer service. And so I called her being like, I don't know what I'm going to do. She's like, well, we recently got this like inquiry from this family farm in Nicaragua who they said they have moringa and they really want to work with you, which was so random, but ended up, they were amazing family, like doing really good work, like paying their employees well, doing great stuff. And they had moringa available that we could source and it met our quality standards. And so we started sourcing it and we launched the powder nationwide at Whole Foods, and then, continued to work in Ghana once those farmers were able to regrow and rebuild, but have now expanded our supply chain where we're not just sourcing from one group in one country.
That's incredible. That's a great story. And that goes back to your motto of see a problem, fix the problem. Love that. And also, I think it's a story of every entrepreneur of failing forward for multiple years. That's how you make it.
Totally.
Thanks for sharing that. Now, coming to your personal side of things, Lisa, you're a mom, you're an entrepreneur, you're doing social good, you're making money. Talk to us a little bit about your balance and how you're able to, and any lessons for young parents and how they can push forward on multiple dimensions.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how. I don't know how parents do it. I think becoming a parent is amazing. It's incredible, as you know. And it sort of like brings you down to earth I think in a great way. You're like, oh, I can do all these amazing accomplishments, but then at the end of the day, my baby's just like screaming and I can't fix it. So it's definitely very humbling. And what we, I think what my partner Trenton and I have tried to do is really figure out like, how do we, balance, but also like understand that there's going to be moments where I'm going to have crazy stuff at work and I just like need him to be almost a single parent for a while, and vice versa. And then how do we build a community? We rely on a lot of support from our families, from our friends, and have tried to build a community around our daughter as much as possible, which has been strange during a pandemic. You have less access to that support, but I feel like we're big believers in, and it takes a village to raise a baby, and I think it takes a village to raise a startup too. So I'm all about getting as many hands involved as possible.
So it's kind of a social bubble type of thing that you've created, and get your kids in a bubble and raise as a village.
Yeah,
that's a cool that's a cool idea. And how about going sort of piggybacking on that? If there's what advice would you give to say a aspiring founder or CEO, perhaps they're working for a large brand or a large company, which is typically our audience. You're looking to pursue an entrepreneurial journey like yourself in CPG. Would love to get some thoughts from you.
Oh, yeah, lots of advice. I think, one of the biggest things I tell people who are looking to start food companies is to really figure out how you can test and learn before you go to scale. I think when we were small, we were trying to be like, we're so small, I just want to be big, without understanding that actually there's a real benefit to being small. And that if you can do things like testing in a farmer's market, or getting real-time consumer feedback one week and then changing it the next week, that makes it way faster to learn that way than to raise a bunch of money, produce a huge manufacturing run, and then hear from their customers that they hate this one thing with your product. So I think, you know this better than anyone, but applying a lot of the lessons that tech has learned to manufacturing. It's harder to do iterations, but thinking about how do you start small, iterate, learn, continue.
Yeah, and going back to what you had mentioned, maybe when we glossed over it on how we hand cooked or handmade those first few ones that you tested and also sold to Whole Foods. That is incredible, right? How that's the epitome of sort of agility and get shit done.
And it's like the least glamorous thing in the world. I think when people think founder, CEO, for a long time, it said founder, CEO on my business card, but I was also chief dishwasher and label maker and everything. You're doing everything. And especially in the early days when we had no money, it was all of Saturday I'd spend making these bars by hand, all of Sunday testing them out at farmers markets, and then Monday go back to my day job where I actually made money. And it was like that for a little while, a couple of years before we were really able to get kind of the feedback and the product and everything right to launch. So it takes time, which is not what any entrepreneur wants to hear, but it does. It can take time to get it right.
Yeah, being scrappy, start backward from the customer and test and learn. Those are good lessons, Lisa. Thanks for sharing. In terms of you're an upstart, a new brand in what could be considered a very crowded category, and you're doing great. You're moving goods, you're generating revenue and growing. Can you, from your perspective and your vantage point, talk to us a little bit about your predictions about where e-commerce and retail is going to end up in the next decade?
Yeah, I think, people buying food online has taken a quantum leap during COVID, as we all know. I don't think that's going away. And I think it's such an opportunity for CPG, companies to really have a more direct relationship with their customers. It's one of the things that, working in tech for a little while starting Kuli Kuli on the side, it's like you have this like real-time analytics in tech of like, exactly like how many people on your website, and like you can sort of heat map what they're clicking on, versus like in the grocery store, it's like who's buying the product, where, what was their heat map through the store? You have no idea. So I think we're going to see a lot more of a focus on e-commerce, both as a place of revenue and also a place of learning. Because I think that's really where you can do those like test, learn, iterate quickly, and then apply that lesson to scale at retail.
In a sense, what you're saying is that the shopper is shopping both online and store. So any learnings that you get from either channel can be applied to both. And hence, of course, e-commerce provides a faster ability to test and learn. And that could be a nice place to do that. I think that's totally a great observation. So finally, I'm curious if there's something as the world hopefully starts to open up here, anything left on your bucket list, either professionally or personally, that you're looking to accomplish?
Oh my gosh, so many things on my bucket list. But I should share today actually is we just launched a new product that I've been so excited about for a long time. So we just launched superfood gummies, which has been kind of on my bucket list for a long time because I love gummies. I think they're like such a fun form factor, and to be able to like eat my superfoods in a way that's delicious and you get all the great benefits and don't have to like, deal with powders or pills or what have you. You get an awesome, fun, snackable gummy. It's so exciting to me. So that is a thing on my bucket list that as of today, I have checked.
Awesome. Congratulations on the launch. We're definitely going to check that out. Great. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thanks for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you.
If you enjoyed listening to this episode, it would mean so much to us if you could take a moment to share this show on LinkedIn. To learn more how Guru and his team can help optimize and grow your e-commerce business on Amazon and other retailers, visit commerceiq.ai. Thanks for listening.